How's everyone doing? Good. We're very excited to have as our very special guest and speaker, Estonia's president, Kersti Kaljulaid. She's spending much of the time of her time this afternoon at USC, and we just came from a meeting with interim USC President Wanda Austin, and she also spent time with the consul generals who are based here in Los Angeles earlier this afternoon. And I would like to acknowledge the consul generals that are here in the room, as well as others from the U.S. Consular Corps here in Los Angeles. You are always welcome at USC. I would like to also acknowledge Jonathan Vezviov, the Estonian ambassador to the U.S., and Jaak Treman, the honorary consul general for Estonia in Los Angeles, who is also a two-time Trojan. Finally, I'd like to give a special thanks to School of International Relations professor Rob English. Where's Rob? He's running around getting things done because he's gone above and beyond in organizing today's activities. Our School of International Relations is the oldest, is oldest in the United States, third oldest in the world, and is also one of the most popular majors here at USC. Now, it is my distinct honor to introduce Kersti Kaljulaid, President of the Republic of Estonia. And before I mention some of her many accomplishments, I'd just like to note a historic anniversary. Today, October 3rd, is the 2-year anniversary of her election as Estonia's president. Happy anniversary. As president, she has championed several key priorities. One is promoting the unity of the Nordic countries, joining Estonia with Finland, Iceland, and others in tighter political, economic, and especially digital cooperation. The second is advancing Estonia as a linchpin of NATO security, from leadership of the Baltic states to liaison with the United States in maintaining transatlantic solidarity in the face of growing security challenges. Third, and perhaps best known, are President Kaljulaid's efforts in the digital realm, from combating cyber threats to continuing Estonia's world leadership in creating a digital society to improve the health and welfare of all Estonia's citizens. These initiatives are the subject of her address this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, President Kaljulaid.
Dear friends, very happy to be here in front of you, representing the world's only digital society which actually has a state on its side. The Estonian digital society of 1.3 million people, this is our whole population, because in our case it's all inclusive. We have gone through a societal disruption to make sure that our citizens and businesses have a totally digital environment to deal with the state and also with their private partners. And I would like to add an important notice. Estonia is not a technology developing country. At no point during this transformation of society has Estonia created any cutting-edge technology. Tech-wise, all what we use is pretty mundane. It's well tried and tested by other actors, mostly private in the world. It makes it cheap, it makes it quite reliable. Part of it is even open source, namely our e-voting system, so everybody can try to hack it. Nobody has managed, but you can try if you feel like doing it. Therefore, the difference in Estonian society compared to the other developed societies, this disruptive innovation is not technology itself. The innovation lies elsewhere. It is in the process of bringing businesses and government together to help all people, young and old, to benefit from these technological developments invented by the others. In other words, we are the quick followers, not creators of technology. Already for 17 years, Estonians have a digital ID, and we can use it to sign and timestamp, very important, almost like blockchain, but from the beginning of the century. Documents, including private contracts. We can apply for different public services, pay fines and pay taxes online, query the registries, change our service packages, and simply send encrypted emails. And we also use our private sector provided services on the same platform. Estonian e-government is like an app store. Everybody can develop services on it. Private companies, public sector, people to people, you can too. If you become Estonian e-resident, you have access to this app store and you can use it for developing your business. It will be an EU business and you could actually do quite a lot of creative technology things on this app store. Well, I said it's inclusive and it took some special effort to get all people in. All generations, of course, need to use it because otherwise it will be divisive in the society, not creating social cohesion. It doesn't happen all by itself, and we did run quite expensive Tiger Leap program. First teaching young people to use and stay safe in internet, then teaching old people, because they are normally those who are most reluctant. We couldn't have done it alone. Our private sector was paying part of the cost. And also, they created the incentives for those who were reluctant to use. For example, we identified as people near retirement age or retired as the most reluctant cohort to start using computerized services. But we need it because we are not a densely populated country. And we didn't want old men and women standing for the bus, taking the bus to the centers to get services. We wanted them to enjoy the comfort of using these services from the nearest computer, because of course at the turn of the century not every retired person had a telephone or a computer as you all do. But the nearest computer normally was in the village library, which is much closer than the town in the region. So we convinced them to use because it was comfortable. And the biggest incentive, banks offered their services free for older people. And they are careful with their money. So this made the system truly inclusive, all generations in. Digital ID is something we have on our ID card. Most European countries have a travel document, which is not a fat passport, but simple travel card. And we decided that we will put a digital chip on it to make it happen that people could also start using digital services, provided somebody is going to generate them. And, it was worrisome in the beginning for the government. I was there, I was advising Prime Minister at that time, so I remember the Minister of Finance wanted that we demonstrate what will be the benefits next year or the year after. Well, the full benefits by now are 2% of the GDP saved by simply signing digitally, 6% of our GDP being generated from ICT, and 4 or 5 working days per capita saved from not going and queuing in public offices. We all have a century to live. Why waste so many days? And this way we started off on our way. But government realized it's not going to create so many services so quickly. We had tax board online, but we opened the platform for business, not only because we think it's a good thing if government and businesses do things together. Private-public partnership has been a strong word, weekly executed everywhere. I don't think we would have been better, but our worry was that if we do not make private sector to use the same backbone of digital services, people will only maybe declare taxes online initially, and this is too little. They will not get used to regularly wiping their card out, putting it in the card reader, and then using this to connect with the state. So we very much supported that private sector was on the same platform. And we also had to make some services, more or less happen totally automatically. For example, in Estonia, if a baby is born, then the doctor enters the data about the birth, length, weight, everything, into the e-health system. And in the background, without the doctor pushing one button, a digital identity is created for this baby. This happened, of course, this way, that we wanted the doctors to push one button and say, by this, you will create a registry for this baby, an entry into the registry. And they refused. They said, this is not my job, I'm a doctor. We accepted. And therefore, we created a system which automatically does it in the background, so that the doctors even don't know they are the civil registry managers. Quite efficient. And of course, now the parents can name the baby. And if you tell an Estonian parent that you have to leave the hospital and go to village or city government with the baby or without the baby, anywhere where people are with diseases, and it might be a high season for, well, colds, and name your baby, they would be shocked and in horror, because you can do it from your hospital bed, of course. Why would you go to the city office? You name the baby where you are. Register at the same moment the baby for social services, for kindergarten queues. Yes, we do have those, I'm sorry to say, but who doesn't? But at least you can do it all from your maternity ward. Very comfortable, our people think. It demonstrates that for a society as a whole, these high rates of technological penetration, even when the technology itself is not really cutting edge, this may pay off better than something truly innovative in the hands of few, selected few. For example, an analogy from a real world. How much did your life change when somebody landed on the moon? Not much. How much did your life change when a washing machine was invented? Women, hands up. Hundreds. So you see, we have all experienced this also in the analog world. Tried and tested simple technology, if it's inclusively used by the society, brings much greater benefits to the society. And this 2% which I mentioned is a huge amount of savings. But you know, digital is also a great equalizer, because the government also spends considerable amount on developing e-services and maintaining them and protecting them. About the same amount, actually. So you could say it's kind of neutral project, NPV-wise. But this spending is heavily skewed towards weaker in the society, in the business, SMEs, because Estonian businesses, of course, also don't run to any offices. They do everything online. All the declarations you need to do, who is working in my company, I mean, their status, all the salaries, everything online. If you are an entrepreneur, you pay somebody salary, then this information immediately appears in the tax board that you have done this, and also on the tax declaration pre-format of this person. So when you finally go and file for your taxes, everything's already there, what you have been doing. Partially your accounting is taken care of by the tax office. And the big businesses, of course, gain less from this than small ones, because SMEs have no ways of managing big bureaucracy. So the spending of government goes more towards helping the weaker ones in our business sector. Also, if you think of it, who bear the brunt of, I don't know, queuing for social services? Women, us in the society. Who bear the brunt of family life burden most? Even if you work hard and try to make it equal, we know it's us, the women. So it's extremely important for women to have access to public services early in the morning, late in the night, not from 9 to 5. You can do it when your baby's asleep. Great relief, I have to say. Also, this way of thinking creates quicker the jobs where it's not so important anymore to go to work. I have to say that one of our banks is now always, when they advertise for a job, and it's our biggest bank and has the biggest market share, it has decided it will never say this job is in Tallinn or in any other town in Estonia. It says there is a job in our bank. And then they find somebody to work this job, and these people don't move. They work from where they are. Totally possible. If you have to be physically present, you can use video cams, but most of the banking work actually doesn't need any direct contact anymore. And this way you can see, again, there is new possibility for participation in the job market for handicapped people, people in rural areas, again, women with small children who cannot displace themselves so easily. A great equalizer. And I think this has made our society not only richer, but also better place, more equal. Very often people say that digital takes jobs away and we should be scared. Quite to the contrary, digital makes job market more equal, more accessible. And you know what? Also much bigger, because you don't have to necessarily work in your own country. It's perfectly feasible to know Estonian tax code and work from somewhere in Africa. If you're a poor African girl, but I mean, you have the opportunity to learn, maybe online, bookkeeping, welcome. Estonia, of course, doesn't say that the underlying documentation always needs to be in the country for bookkeeping. Everything's electronic anyway, so you can manage it from Africa. See, our job market, our salaries are extremely high now already. We are 32nd highest average salary country globally. But job market could be open, even without displacement. I think it could solve a lot of our problems if we all collectively in developed world took this view. I know we don't, but it's a worrisome issue, and I will tell you why. I call this the Alice in Wonderland issue. This means that, you know Alice in Wonderland, yes? There was a cat, Cheshire Cat. When he left, the grin did not leave, lingered on. Well, we see that our job market is changing. Industrial jobs are vanishing. Do you think that our social model of tax gathering and distributing it according to where people live and where they work in a single place, this will linger for a long time, like in Alice in Wonderland, the grin? We all know that finally also the grin packed itself up and went. If we do not realize quickly that more and more people work independently, we see the numbers growing everywhere. But we are not adapting. We still expect people to have a working address and one company where they work, maybe two, or maybe be an independent worker living in this country registered in this address. And then we tax them and then we provide services to them. But this is not the way to go. Our citizens travel. You need to offer services globally. For example, citizen must be able to vote wherever he or she finds himself or herself. We need to develop schools where people can educate their children in their maternal language, even if they are very far from home. Obligation for us because world is global, economy is global. In Europe, we have enhanced it by free movement of people in 28 states. Therefore, it would be weird if we now did not provide state services to our citizens, even if they are not physically in our state. Also, people can work in 10 different companies in a narrowly specialized way. It has high added value. But then the question is really persistent. Who gets the taxes and who provides the social services? Logical answer is you have some kind of a new contract where people pay taxes to the country they feel closest to, live in or are citizens of, and this country offers them services globally. Well, everything I think about how we regulate, for example, tax distribution via OECD agreements, flies into the face of this new thinking. We try not to just sit on our hands and complain about it. During our EU Council presidency, we got all ministries of finance together in Tallinn to discuss what could be our global proposal to solve this issue, that industrial jobs are vanishing, but our social system is based on our industrial model, not the new model. And more people every day opt out of our social models. Later, they opt back in when they need healthcare or education for their children, but we have lost a big proportion of their earnings. And only pension system really penalizes you for late opt-in. Everything else is more or less, well, you can opt in. But we don't want to lose in Europe our social state. We appreciate it and we think we need to keep it. Also, it could help us to make this transition easier than was the transition from agrarian society to industrial society. Because at that time, it was painful too on precariat. Obviously it was. You lost your job in agriculture and had to go to the town and work in really bad conditions in industry. Long hours, polluted air, everything. Huge suffering for people who were not so rich. This transition is as big. What we have different? Our social systems, education system, healthcare systems, which help to protect people in this transition. But it will only happen successfully if we stop all talks about, I don't know, taxing robots and trying to keep the old jobs alive, even if they are dying naturally. It's like, did we tax tractors so that people could, still go and work manually in agriculture? We didn't. Yes, we didn't help people to feel supported when they moved to industrial area. And we had it out on, majority of our ancestors actually, who had really bad lives, gradually only getting better. We need to take care that our people can manage this societal change. For that, we need tax money. But we need to start thinking about it now, before too many people opt out. Because they opt out some will get rich and they can buy private insurance. It's all fine and dandy. But a lot of people will fall into the precarious classes because their earnings are not that high. They are intermittent. They don't work 12 months a year. Another requirement of industrial area, you only get insurances if you verse a certain amount of taxes every month. What for? You could do it once a year. You could pay when you are currently earning. If you're not earning, you're not earning. There should be minimum layers set how you contribute to the state, and it would be much, much more flexible in the future. But we need an international agreement on that. And it's extremely important also that we continue understanding that these new jobs, they are not created only for software engineers. Yes, they do create the carrier service, but the content service is much more democratic. If you think, what has been the main income source for big tech companies if they are not in carrier service or hardware? Talking. So short talking, Twitter, long discussions, Facebook. I mean, what's high-tech in that? Nothing. Airbnb turning your, idle assets into money. Look, it's not something where you need a PhD. Traveling YouTuber. You can be extremely stupid and make money from being stupid. Or think of, people who are handicapped. Let's take an autistic person living somewhere in rural area, in whichever country. And this autistic person, he loves to knit red socks. 10 years ago, he couldn't have made a living out of this. Because, in his or her region, there are just not enough takers for red socks. In addition, he's afraid of talking to people, so cannot sell. These problems are all solved now. I don't know this person, but I'm sure there exist these persons. But I do know that handicraft in general is benefiting from this. And there I have a real life example. In Estonia, there is a guy who came from South Africa, of all places. I don't know, there's much warmer, nicer climate there. He came to live in Estonia. Oh, I know why. He married an Estonian girl. This is our best way of getting new talent into the country, obviously. And he makes bows and arrows, really good, world-class sporty bows and arrows. His closest client, I think, lives about 1,000 kilometers from where he lives. Within his parish lives 500 people. Nobody can afford a bow and arrows from his office. And he lives there, and he's perfectly happy, can afford to live where he likes and do what he does really best, probably in the world, make a really good quality living out of it. Now, if we had a tax model which would capture the fair part of his earnings, I would be very happy also for my state. Right now, he's, of course, also an honest taxpayer. You can work independently, declare this, and pay taxes. But for some reason, they are not proportionate to what you are earning. So maybe we need to do something there. Anyway, you see, technology changes societies. And not in this way, in this simplistic way that it's dangerous, it's taking jobs away, it's only creating jobs for educated and mighty. It needn't be this way if you make it inclusive. We have made digital inclusive in Estonia. I'm quite sure that other countries can do too. And then there is something which we haven't yet talked about, but security. It's extremely important that people use the new technologies in full security. There are many layers to that, but everybody can do one thing. You can train yourself in cyber hygiene. The term is coined by me, so use copyright if you use it. And it's a social copyright. I have not protected it, and I never will. I trust globally on people's honestness and goodwill. But cyber hygiene is something which makes people safe in internet. We all know that technology will not make us safe 100%. Nothing's 100%, of course, safe, but more or less safe. It's ourselves. If your phone or your computer says update, you update because otherwise there is a hole and somebody can peep in. Do not trust people online if you do not know who they are. Which again brings me to this issue that governments, if they want to teach people cyber hygiene, they have to offer them safe identification means, digital ID, guaranteed by government, an electronic passport. Some European countries already have it, but they have not enough services tied to it. But we are moving in Europe towards this direction. During the EU Council presidency, we held a digital summit which forwarded the message to the other leaders of Europe, which said, your people, your businesses, they are anyway in internet. You have to provide them with safe identification means. You absolutely have to. And we see a movement. Germany has started last year, France is starting hopefully next year. Some Nordics have it, Estonia, Finland, Iceland operate the same system. So it's moving in the right direction. But this is like cyber hygiene cannot come without, like normal hygiene cannot come if people do not have running water and soap. Digital ID is the running water and soap of the cyber hygiene. People will realize that if they use their digital ID, which encrypts the discussion between them and the other party, who is also signed in with the digital ID, which means that, first of all, you know with whom you're talking to. You cannot be tricked. In normal world, you wouldn't buy or sell unless you are sure that the person who is selling you something is who they say they are. You go to the notary office, you take your physical passport. In internet, you need the same kind of state-provided security, and digital ID is that. It's a human right, I think. We need to provide it. And then we need to teach our people that if you are in this safe state-provided environment, which consists of identification and then the apps surrounding it, linked to it, you are safe. And by this, people automatically more or less learn that Facebook is dangerous. You don't have to tell them. They know. They would never know who is on the other end. And I'm not blaming at all, by the way, Facebook and others, because they didn't create any crimes. They were operating in a legally unregulated space where the governments did not provide people with identification means. So they did the best they could. Alas, it cannot be as good as state-guaranteed digital passport. So I think we should apologize to them sometimes, and also thank that they have created at least some ways and means for us to shop on Amazon, for example, or identify each other through Facebook identikit. Yes, the data has leaked. Yes, it is not as secure as digital identities could be. Yes, our data may sometimes have been exploited, but it is because the legal space was not regulated. By the way, in Estonia it is regulated, because we of course have a lot of big data in our government databases, and this can be used. For example, our tax board can make plotters which will allow you to understand how regional economy is changing. Do you see the trends in the graphs which will indicate that there are job losses going to occur? Not yet occurring, but going to occur. We can, to a certain extent, predict and then take measures, start preparing for rise in unemployment or something, or look what is causing it and try to understand it better. So this data can be used, but it is clearly regulated. It's not that you cannot use the data, let's forbid everything. No, it's a permissive legal space, which says, yes, you can use this data, but under certain conditions. Like it has to be in unpersonalized format. In personal format, everybody has the ownership of their data. And if anybody has been looking at their personal data, there will be a sign in the system who it was. And if these people had nothing to do looking for your data, then you can actually complain and they get prosecuted, because it's criminal offense to snoop. So it's not okay if you're a police officer and you check the data of your ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. You go to the court for it. And we've had these cases. People quickly learn that this is a no-no. So in addition to providing a secure element and enabling cyber hygiene to develop in the country, we have also created a legally permissive space for digital technologies to create services, a sandbox for all to use. And it's obviously working because Estonia has 4 unicorns per 1.3 million people. San Francisco doesn't have so many per capita like we do. And it's of course all open to you as well. You can become Estonian e-resident and create your company in Europe and then try it out, to educate yourself, to have encrypted emails with your friends, or then come and create a company in Estonia. Because we like to joke that we did it because we got so tired of people asking how can it work, so they could try. But in fact, of course, we do believe that people deserve a chance to create a company in a low bureaucracy environment. It's not a tax-free environment. It's not a tax haven. Quite to the contrary, it's very transparent. For example, Estonian tax board keeps tracks of all business transactions above 1,000 euros. And 99% of transactions in Estonia are done online, so practically no zero cash environment what we have there, at least in the big transactions. So our companies are transparent to our tax board, and our tax board is chatty one. He talks to your tax boards as well. So it's definitely transparent, low bureaucracy environment, but not low tax environment. Please do not confuse us with those who are. We are. We also want, of course, to add to our economic growth via e-residency, to grow the circle of friends of Estonia, because Estonian economic development has led us to the situation where we are not seeking FDI, but we are exactly seeking smart people playing in our digital sandbox or our genetic sandbox, because we have in genetic engineering and population level genetics same kind of legally permissive environment, which is safe for businesses and scientists to use. But we still have one worry, and we're trying to remedy that as well. Estonia is running for the United Nations Security Council non-permanent membership. And you know why? Do you think it's just nice? I mean, I look in the mirror in the morning and say, wow, I'm going to chair the United Nations Security Council meeting. No, it's tedious and painfully long. Seeking compromises is never easy, so I'd rather not do it if I could afford. But I cannot, because our analog law should apply in cybersphere. And it doesn't. We have lots of academic work done, which gives us more or less the understanding that it could work in digital. But we do lack the international legal space, which will define the rights and obligations of governments towards protecting their people, human rights, and also their sovereignty. This needs to be taken to Security Council. So small countries do not have time for small objectives. They need to go big time. We want to contribute in bringing all things cyber and digital to the table. That's why we are running. We want to contribute, but of course it makes our own people safer. Like making digital nations more numerous is in our interest. Sometimes I get asked that, why are you promoting that people follow you and take the competitive advantage away from you? First of all, I say you cannot, because even if you are a quick follower, you cannot catch the original. This, of course, is an old economic rule, and it still applies. But second, our economy is export-oriented. 80% of our economy is exports. So, I mean, it's very boring for our businesses that as soon as they cross the border, they are back to paper. And, of course, having understanding that it can be done differently makes them even more impatient with the paperwork they face everywhere. They don't want to see it. In addition, we continue to innovate, so we are not afraid of competition. For example, we are now discussing how to regulate the relations between human beings and algorithms in tech-neutral way, preparing for artificial intelligence. Yes, I know there is only automated, autonomous, and narrow AI out there. And the gurus say they think that by the half century we will have 50% of a chance that singularity appears. But I mean, it doesn't matter. If you regulate for AI, all the lower levels are automatically covered and regulated. So we want to do a human algorithm law so that it will be tech neutral. And you know, we have elections next year, but I'm sure this will happen whoever wins. And the reason is it's citizen-driven process. Because you see, our citizens are now asking that systems turn proactive towards them. It's like you have the information that I've just had a baby. Remember, the digital ID was created. And you know I'm entitled to child support because it's universal in Estonia. Sometimes I'm also entitled to some family support depending on the number of my children and their age. You know all this too. And you know my bank account number. Why on earth do I have to log on and apply for this service? Just give me the money. I'm not joking, this is true. We already have one of these services because we pay retired people who live alone, which is expensive and precarious situation to be in, a top up on their pensions. They don't have to apply. Just the systems communicate and no person on loop, no action by the retired person because maybe they wouldn't even know there is such a service. We simply pay. See, people demand that algorithms take decisions and do something for them. So there is no choice. You have to expand the legal space. Even if the politicians would suddenly get afraid or think they're too lazy to do it, they have to. People demand it. That's why we're also not afraid of spreading our knowledge, hoping to turn into digital societies more states. And also, it's not only this. Frankly, I feel very strongly about less developed parts of the world, like Africa. We want Africa to leapfrog and other poor places. We see there is huge potential in digital. To kill also the unnecessary migration, human trafficking. Yes, there are traditional ways to do it. I mean, open African job market so trafficking dies down because people can freely seek jobs elsewhere. But African countries don't even know who their people are sometimes. Some are quite tech advanced, but some aren't. Same applies for other developing nations. Small island developing states have this problem that their paper registries always drown. They need resilience. Digital is the answer. So we want to spread this knowledge, what we have. We have signed a memorandum of understanding with African Union to develop digital. We have a long-standing e-governance academy with UNDP, helping developing nations to understand tech transition. We have companies who are ready to build these services, who have track record of exporting our public services, building electronic tax board, for example, in Gulf countries, who can pay and buy these systems. So we know we can help developing world, and we want to do it. Because we regained our independence 30 years ago, and we were helped by other countries by being accepted into multilateral organizations, and also for first 10 years we were not donors but receivers of international aid. Now we are donors, but just giving money, we're tiny anyway. We can do something much bigger, develop the digital knowledge of governments globally. Again, this brings us to this situation, but if we develop and promote it globally, we have to take the responsibility for security. Hence again, Security Council. It's hard work, but we do it. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to answer your questions.
I'm Professor English from the School of International Relations. I'm going to help field the brief time we have for some question and answers. And I'd like to, before yielding the floor to you all, special thanks to Anthony Bailey, Vice President, Provost Office of Globalization. We appreciate their support and the support of the Provost tremendously in making events like this possible. Now, let's turn to your questions. We have a bit of time, and I'll help field them. Yes, Bryant.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Bryant, here, you'll be next. Stand up and ask your question loudly.
Thanks for speaking. You expressed your hope for a global solution. I'm curious what different implementation steps you would take in developing countries like India, which has recently experienced difficulties with their own digital ID, or a country like the United States, in which private data is only semi-regulated and not controlled as in Estonia.
We spread our knowledge. But also, I mean, we can find solutions for technical problems, because I know that, for example, in India, the problem was not actually technology used, but the fact that people sold the information in the system. And for that, you should always make sure that nobody has access to the whole system, but only really, really tiny, his or her work-related proportion. So sometimes it's very easy to help. And we also, this year we enhanced our cooperation with UNDP. We just signed a new project agreement. We are creating kind of matrix or analyzing what a country does digitally and how to avoid these kind of errors and how to, walk forward. It doesn't help US, of course, because, this aid is limited to developing countries, I'm sorry to say. But our company is also working here in US. If there is a will of people, it will happen. But there has to be a demand, citizen demand. For example, in Nordic countries, we see quite a lot of this citizen and business demand for digital development because of us. You know why? For 30 years, they have been coming to our country and also other Baltic states to solve their cost problems. It's expensive to produce in Scandinavia, so produce in Baltic states. So their companies know what is our offer to businesses, bureaucracy-wise and tax-wise. They go back home and demand the same. I think the more we have economic cooperation between our two countries, the more also it will benefit this country here. But we are not, I mean, it's not secret what we do. We even give our platform away free if somebody wants to use it. Here it will probably have to be not at the US globally, but at the state level. But we are ready to work with you as well, our companies as well.
And now the young man.
Thank you again for coming to speak to us today. What do you envision the greatest challenges of scaling this digital state to countries much larger than Estonia?
Well, I mean, size does not matter. Our system can tolerate a much higher number of services than there are right now, because it is not a train. I mean, a train is something where you enter the first wagon, maybe, and then you walk through all wagons to get to the necessary point in the service provision. Instead, it's like a sun in the nucleus that takes part the connection of people or businesses, two of them, and you can have an endless number of rays. So it's easily scalable. Estonia is 1.3 million. Finland is already much more. It's a bigger country. It's using the same backbone for service provision. And you know what is weirdest thing? Actually, there are some countries who have public sector digitalized to quite similar extent as we have. But because there is lack of political courage to tell people we have it anyway, so it wouldn't change that much if we distributed to you the digital identities and you started self-serving in this system, because people are afraid. You have to explain to people one little thing. Digital is always safer than paper. And you know how? Of course, in digital registry, there is always the sign who was reading. Do you know who read your medical file in the hospital? You don't. And this is which demands actually political leadership and courage to simply explain to your people. But you know, politics is not part of entertainment sector. It's a leadership. So people need to have more courage to do it. And you know, when they are interested, they do it. Also here in the States, many doctors have the chance to prescribe digital prescriptions. And you know why? States wanted to know about opioid overuse. So like a flash, they created a service. We are worried because this service, by the way, by sending an email prescription is extremely weakly protected. Not at all, I would say. It's very different from what we do. But if something goes wrong here, then the reputation of all e-prescriptions, of course, goes down the drain. Nobody thinks about technological differences.
Yes, over here, young woman.
Hi there, thank you so much for coming to speak today. I was wondering about your cybersecurity policies and how would you plan to implement cybersecurity on such a mass scale when we have things like mass data breaches happening every day? Can people really feel secure in their data online when we know that we have hacking efforts continuously going on around the world?
Yes, we can. If you have digital identity, then access to systems are only provided if you identify yourself to the system. So hackers find it very difficult, even if they are in the system, to unencrypt it. Because by entering with right, correct digital signature, you can activate your rights in the system. And this de-encrypts for you the information what is in there. But I mean, simple hacking will not give you out this data, even if you manage to get into the database. But of course, every day we exercise great caution and train our people to keep their passwords safe and their ID cards safe and their mobile phone IDs safe, etc. It's constant work. And again, nothing is absolutely safe. Nothing in this world is, but it is safer than paper. Because we can tell nobody can have access and can read your data, and we can actually implement it. On paper, you never can. We know all the stories, I mean, and these are no less big stories that I don't know. Some medical files have been found in dustbin somewhere. So cyber is only as safe as we, as human beings ourselves, make it, but the potential is greater than in analog.
President Kaljulaid, could I exploit my position up here and ask a follow-on question about state actors in cybersecurity? We have an election coming in this country. You've been traveling, talking to business, university, government officials. Estonia has had experience more than a decade with state-directed hacking, exploitation of social media, denial of service attacks. What do you say to Americans who are in this realm, election security, media security, as far behind Estonia as maybe we are in medical records and digitizing society elsewhere? What do we need to do?
First of all, separate the two things. One is cyber conventional risks related to hacking the systems, bringing down the systems, election system or other systems. This is where technology and cyber hygiene helps. And the other is spreading misinformation. This is a totally different thing. But of course, it is promoted by the anonymity in internet. And we don't want to take anonymity totally away from the internet. But if you provide also safe, non-anonymous parts of internet, like our digital environment is, people inherently know that, what gets promoted in Facebook might not be true because I don't know who is telling this to me. But again, it's cyber hygiene, education. You have to tell people that you cannot be sure what you see online. But again, technology doesn't help dealing with the problems we have in our society. If you do not provide equal access to education in a country, you get generation after generation of hopeless people who lose hope in the establishment, in the political classes, what we have. And unless you solve this problem, they will always be vulnerable for something which you call populism. I'm sorry, it's not populism. People aren't satisfied with the services they have been getting. And then they resort to simple solutions. We have to deal with the root cause to avoid these kind of problems. On the other hand, yes, it is indeed true that some of our not so good friends are exploiting this normal dissatisfaction of people with their political class and trying to make this chasm bigger. We should attribute it if possible, and this country has done so. Some other countries have done so. I think we need to be doing exactly this, attributing and being transparent. But the problem of attribution of all kinds of cyber attacks right now is that there is no political gain or benefit on international scheme to be had from bothering to attribute. It's expensive to attribute, costly process. You have to shift through loads of data. It's easier to fight back and not attribute because in international law space, as I already said, there is absolutely no benefits to be had from having managed to attribute. What will happen if I manage to attribute? Will there be some kind of a place where we could complain, seek some retaliation, some compensation? I don't know. There isn't right now, but there should be. Then we would be much more eager to attribute, and that will actually start, making the problem even more transparent.
Young man in the red shirt, back row.
Thank you for speaking today. My question is, what safeguards are in place in the system to prevent more authoritarian states or actors from using this technology to exploit their own people?
Sorry to say, technology does not solve humankind. It enhances what we do. It enhances liberal democracies and it enhances the lack of democracy, the similar way. Whatever you do with technology, it will only reflect your society. Every e-state is reflection of the state you have, nothing different. Because what happens in e-state is similarly regulated by the legal space the state has set, like in analog world. There is absolutely no difference. For example, if you have a really, truly horrible bureaucracy, you could digitalize all processes, but without streamlining, you will only get much more effective and cumbersome, horrible bureaucracy. Think about it. It's not about technology, and never has been, by the way, in the societies.
Question was
digital currency.
Digital currency.
Yes, definitely not. Digital currencies, as we know them, are a fake, bubble, horrible thing, ruining the reputation of perfectly good technology, which is blockchain. As I said, Estonian digital environment is blockchain-like, timestamp and identification, but it's not blockchain. Blockchain is a good technology, but we have been considering maybe we should shift, but the problem is blockchain is expensive to use because it makes sense if you want a new registry or new entry to be known by all systems in the country simultaneously. But problem is that 95% of the queries in the systems are not changing system, they are queries. So it would be like, well, you are exercising or activating a big machinery which is expensive for doing a tiny task. That's the problem of blockchain as technology. But Bitcoin and these things, they have far worse problems. I mean, all of us who know anything about economy know that currency is a reflection of an economy. So to understand whether currency is overvalued or undervalued, you badly need to know the volume of economy, who works there, what companies there are, all these things, which provides you with a measurement that this is the right amount of currency, therefore not over or undervalued for this particular economy. What's Bitcoin economy? There's 21, how many billion out there. What can you buy for it? A place in Draper and Draper University, I learned the day before yesterday. You cannot buy a can of Coke normally. Maybe there are some other services which you can buy, but definitely they wouldn't amount for the 21 billion market in Bitcoin. Obviously you have a bubble. Whoever says the opposite is, well, maybe inflating the bubble. Maybe they have a good reason to do so. I'm not sure it's for the benefit of the humankind. But on the other hand, I can think even for this kind of token thing, a role. For example, it could work as an alternative means to identify yourself to the Estonian digital infrastructure, making it kind of device neutral, even more than it already is. If we issue for every Estonian 10,000 S tokens, they could use these 10,000 to identify themselves to the system easily. So there I can see a function. Why we are not doing it? We are so afraid of getting contaminated with this bad thing, which is Bitcoin.
Unfortunately, we have to stop there. We're out of time. I'd like to thank you for a really, really stimulating talk.
Thank you.
Those who are on the list for the reception, you know who you are. I'm pointing to the access point, private event back there. The rest of you, I'm sorry, but that concludes our event. And besides, you should be watching the Yankees and the Athletics in a few hours.